Hello, welcome back to allforunitedwfc. 3 wins, 3 clean sheets, another couple of goals as well. So it's a happy panel on a Friday night. It's been a while since we've done Friday night shows as well. This is a bit unusual doing a match reaction on a Friday at 7 o'clock, but here we are. So get all your thoughts in your comments. I see you all already in the chat. It's good to see you all on this Friday evening. I'm not going to waste any time. Let's just get straight into it. So 8 changes to the starting 11 we saw this week. Barry, I'll come to you first because you were on the show on Monday when we were speaking a bit about what changes we'd see, whether there'd be many, obviously with no game this weekend now. Were you relatively happy with that lineup? Because only, Fallon, Mayer and Millie were the only ones that remained from the league game against Everton.
Yeah, I mean, look, we spoke about it, like you said, and I was very much on the fence as to what Mark Skinner might actually do for that one. There was, I thought, an argument for both possibilities. We suggested that if we wanted to try and nail down the system and the way that he seems to be playing, obviously some people were thinking we needed a bit more, what's the word you're looking for, fusion between them when they're able to do that system. So we said that might be a good idea if he kept the team pretty much the same. Equally, we did say that the Conti Cup should be used for this sort of thing to give people the opportunity to play that may not be playing week in, week out. And I thought actually we did quite well with it. I think, let's put it this way, I wasn't sad when it came out. I didn't sit there and go, I don't think that was a good idea. I think it's probably the right idea. I think what I'd also say is that the last time we tried that, it wasn't very enjoyable. They didn't do as well in the Conti Cup, and we didn't even come close to making it out of the group stage. This one I thought was a much better, more complete performance, and probably against, you could argue, the hardest team in the group. So no, I wasn't against it. I thought it was quite nice to have the chance to see someone come in. And that's what helps to provide competition for places. These girls had the opportunity to turn up, give it a go, and see if they could give Mark Skinner something to think about with regards to next week. And maybe one or two of them did. But no, I don't think I had any major dramas with that. I think the only thing that was in my mind through all of that was if Gabby George could play 90 minutes effectively at left back in that game, why has she not been picked in the previous 2? I think that's the only thing that I had in my mind there.
Yeah, I definitely want to come back to that as well. I think, Caris, I'll just throw it over to you from a lineup point of view, because everyone in the chat is pretty much saying the same thing about, it's great to see the rotation. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because when we're talking about rotation here, that's still an incredibly strong side. You're talking about Malard won Champions League a million times, Golden Boot, in Miyazawa, Mannion and Gabby George, experienced players, Hayley Ladd, people were talking about her for the captaincy over the summer. Like, we're not just bringing the kids in and rotating that way. This is a very strong side, despite 8 changes in there.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that I think we can take a massive positive from. It's like you say, when we play sort of, I hate to use this phrase, but a B team, as it were, as a lot of sides do in the Conti Cup, you don't pick your regular league starters. We are not fielding a load of teenagers or a load of players who we'd never ordinarily trust in a WSL game. I don't think that was the first minutes of the season for anyone. I think I'm right in saying everyone had been trusted.
Aoife and Hayley, I think.
Oh yeah, Aoife and Hayley. Well, yeah, but they're obviously experienced enough that we weren't worried about their game capability. I've completely lost my train of thought now. But yeah, we were, even kind of with not our first choice team, we still looked really cohesive, I thought, because that's the other issue that you have when you play a lot of players who aren't starting regularly, is you lack a bit of cohesion. So I was really pleased to see it, and I thought that everyone who played well, and didn't just play well for someone who's not starting regularly. I thought everyone genuinely performed well, which I think was really pleasing, because usually you look at players who start less regularly, you go, considering their lack of minutes, they're playing well. And that wasn't the kind of thought that I had. I thought that everyone performed really nicely and is really promising for the depth that we're starting to build. So touch wood, if we can hopefully move away from injuries and the like, then if we can continue with this level of depth, I think it stands us in really good stead.
No, absolutely. And I think, what is Barry laughing at? He's been laughing for a solid 2 minutes.
It's really tickled me because I saw a message from Kevin a minute ago apologising for saying hello to the three of us. And I'm like, that's a bit weird. So I thought I'd best go back and check what he's put. And this is unbelievable.
Oh, I didn't notice that. What?
Blown my mind. And I don't know who's going to feel worse about that. I mean, if I was Charlie right now, I'd be resigning for sure.
I remember reading that message and just skipping over it. I didn't even notice.
I didn't even notice that.
The same thing. I didn't even notice. So actually, Kevin, if you hadn't mentioned anything, you'd have got away with that. But it just made me giggle because then I started wondering, do you look like a famous Charlie? And I'm not sure. Possibly Sheen, possibly the one out of Busted or McFly. I can't remember which one it is. I think it's Busted.
Do you know what makes me laugh? No one in the chat picked up on that either.
No. But he just wanted to apologise. He's being so nice. And I'm like, why would you be apologising? What on earth has he said? And then I found it. I'm like, oh, and it's Connor that's got it. So I had to bring it up. Sorry.
No, I didn't even notice that. Well, thank you for correcting it. Yes, no Charlie tonight, unfortunately. She'll be back on Monday, which we'll come back to at the end of this. There's a couple of comments I just want to quickly get to before we get into stuff on the game and things like that. Obviously, this comment about the season tickets being moved and everyone else. Now, don't get me wrong, it was amazing to be back at LSV last night, but it was not without its issues with seating and various things. Obviously, I know that, as you were saying here, there was issues with seats being sold that shouldn't and people being moved because of that. Obviously, we got moved from the north stand, which is the standing section, into east and being told to sit down, despite last season it wasn't being an issue. I know there was issues there. I know that the right people are in conversation with the people at Lee and United to try and sort this for the Newcastle game. So that's all I will say on that, because I know those conversations are happening, but it was a bit of a mess. Don't get me wrong, the stewards that were in East Stand were hilarious and fair play to them because they were great sport, and it's not their fault. As I said, they're being told to enforce the rules, so it's not on them, and they were great sports all throughout the evening. So fair play to them. But I did like this, James. Yes, as soon as that announcement goes around the ground about standing up, the foot literally within seconds, stand up if you love and everyone stands up, which is that's just the peak of British humour, isn't it? In full stadium. There we go. So that was quite something. And then also, before Barry quickly jumps in, obviously James is referencing Matt Beard's interview. If anyone hasn't seen it, obviously they're playing this weekend. He's done a press conference today talking about how they had an unfair advantage going into this game because they're playing at the weekend and we aren't. Like, we didn't make 8 changes to the starting 11 or anything else, and like it's our fault that we don't have a game this weekend or anything else. So yeah, I think he's let himself down a little bit there. I like Matt as a manager, and I think he's a very good manager, but I think he's that's the first time I've heard him in it come out and say something. I'm like, really? but yes, a bit. That's what it is. Barry, were you going to jump in on something? You were muted halfway through whilst talking about that.
Yes, it was nothing to do with the one that's just come up. It's this one. Why is he Panda Boy? That's clearly a tiger. Like, people do this to me all the time. Panda Boy, and there's a tiger. So either the school system's really letting people down right now, or he should be Tiger Boy. Yeah. Just people confusing me today. I'm in that sort of mood, Connor. So there we go, just so you know. On
that, though, you did bring up a comment that is, let's actually talk about this very briefly before we come back to the game, because this did come out yesterday as well. Wednesday as well. Obviously, Lucy Neal has signed a professional contract, so that's another one that's coming through there as well. So, Caris, I'll just come to you. Any thoughts on this one as a young defender kind of coming through? We've seen her a little bit. She played in Malta. She was on the bench on Wednesday night as well. Clearly, she's on the fringe. She's probably the next development player that's right there. Just your thoughts on this one, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's always really exciting to see someone come through from kind of like the youth setup and make that way into the first team. I think she just turned 18 as well, I think I'm right in saying. So really exciting for her to kind of have the first professional contract on the table, and a big vote of confidence, I think, from the club as well. My hope for her is just that as we progress, if we have, more Conti Cup games, if we're in a comfortable position in those games, that she does get some minutes, because the issue that the criticism a lot of people have had of Mark Skinner is that sort of lack of rotation. I think bringing that kind of unified approach to our fringe players are still very much our players. If you want to use the term like fringe, they're still very much our players. They should still very much be seen as part of the squad, part of the options. You don't want to be sat just being a name on the team sheet for the sake of filling the bench. You want to go in with the opportunity, with the knowledge that you're going to have that opportunity to get proper minutes. So really excited to have like that prospect coming through, and to give us like that depth in obviously what has been a real problem area with injuries as well. So yeah, congratulations to her. It's really good news.
Yeah, and Barry, for yourself, I think it's George just their 15th. Kind of coming through as well. Just turned it. Well, they announced it on her 18th on Wednesday night, or Wednesday afternoon rather. And yeah, as I agree with Caris. I think if we beat Everton in the next League Cup game and we go into that Newcastle game in a strong position, I think there's a very good chance we do see her in that game, depending obviously on how the group is there. So yeah, anything more to add on that one? And obviously, as people talking about loans, I think that's probably on the cards, to be honest, pretty soon. Yeah, I'm sure you're happy with this one as well.
Yeah, well, of course, you always want to see the youngsters coming through. It's part of the DNA of Manchester United, whether you be, male or female, it's irrelevant, really. So I can't see any Man United fan going, "Oh, this is terrible news." So I think that's good, but I would still maintain, as I said at the beginning of the season, it would be nice. Somebody's got to sort of take the plunge somewhere in terms of trying to give these kids a chance somewhere. It's just where that's going to be. I still don't know that we have, I say we as in an entirety of football, not just Manchester United here, but I still don't know that we've worked out yet how we can have a decent and thriving youth system that is going to feed into the first teams, especially of the likes of the WSL and to a degree even the Championship, with the current format in the way games are played. Because again, with there being so few games on the whole, it's really difficult, I think, for them to get that first team opportunity, because every game's so important. I mean, how often have we sat here and said you lose one or two WSL games, you're probably not going to win the title. So at what point in the season do you go, "Oh, go on then, it's only them"? I mean, Sean's not here yet, so I'll say it's only Brighton, so we'll just throw them in. When do you do that? You can't really, because every game needs to be, we've got to win. So when you're in that sort of situation, there's no incentive. So I don't know. Do you have to go down a sort of an old route? We used to have it. Sure, we used to have it. I'm scratching my head a bit now. But certainly when you went into European competition, you used to say things such as you had to have homegrown players, for example. So I don't know whether going into it in the WSL, you might get to a position where you start saying at least 2 people in the matchday squad need to come through your academy or something like that, because then that way it's a rule that's used all throughout the league. So therefore the incentive is there because everybody has the opportunity to do so, rather than it just being the occasional team that decides to do it. So I think there needs to be a better way. That could well be it. Even if it's not 2, it could just be 1. But it does then give you that opportunity to really start blooding these youngsters through, because as we saw with Grace Clinton, you bring him in, you then send them away for a couple of years, which is lovely. But we could have lost Grace Clinton quite easily last season if she had wanted to, because she'd had such a good time on this loan club. Where was the incentive for her to stay, really? So I think it's really tricky.
Yeah, I'd love to see, like, in the women's, obviously for our women's team, like, say in 50, 60 years, obviously that record that the men's team have got, where there's been an academy player in the matchday squad, I don't even know what that record is. It's got to be, it's just 70, 80 years now or something like that. That record's been going for the men's team. It's ridiculous amount of games in a row. I'd love to see that for the women's in like 40, 50 years' time. I mean, that's a scary thought, me in 40, 50 years' time. But you know what I mean? I certainly won't be doing this when I'm, pushing 70, that's for sure. Yeah, 92 years. So I mean, it's a long time. So that'd be quite cool. But no, I agree. I think there's got to be a pathway there, because we've seen a lot of the youngsters at Herne, and there's been a lot of amazing academy players we've had at United. I always think back to Edwards. She was unbelievable, in the academy, but went off to Germany. I don't know where she is now. I think she might be back in the Championship or Tier 3. We need to make sure we get some of these actually into the team if they're good enough. Obviously, I think Lucy is. But it's about getting them in there and obviously sustaining that, because I don't actually think we've had any that have come through the academy and stayed there. So it is tough, and that pathway is not just at United. I think across the league is tough, but that's a whole other conversation to get into. But there we go. Right, let's talk about the game itself then. So, Caris, I'll start with you. Melvine Malard kicks us off with the first goal. So if you just want to run us through, we'll talk about Malard as a separate kind of her overall performance in a second. But the goal itself, obviously it comes from a corner, but so there's not too much to really dissect from the goal itself. I'm not going to lie, we couldn't really see it from where we were. But that's why if anyone's watched our video that we tweeted, the cheers delayed where we are because we couldn't quite tell until she ran away that it actually hit the back of the net. But yeah, anything to add on the goal itself, or should we just dive straight in with her overall game?
I think there's not much to say on the goal. In fact, the thing that I did notice on the goal was, first of all, you do have to say it was really poor defensively by Liverpool. You shouldn't have that many bodies between Malard and the goal and the ball still be crossing the line. I don't think it's a good like finish from her in a tight situation, but it was defensively not great from them. But what I did notice, it wasn't just Malard that was in a really promising position. We had sort of like several people. We had Turner, we had Haley Ladd, Awujo were all in good positions where they could have done that same thing and jumped on the ball. And I think that's really positive for us from set pieces. But yeah, Malard as well. That's also a really good point from JJ. To have Bizet being able to put those corners in is fantastic. I was really impressed with her. I think Malard and Bizet both, what I noticed from them was like their physicality in their individual battles, I thought was both really good. And that explosive kind of pace and power, I think that was it's just another example of the kind of winger combinations and pairings that we can have. I thought they both performed really well, but Malard especially I thought she was excellent. And it was obviously a real shame to see her have to come off, and we hope that that's nothing too serious.
Yeah, I mean, but I throw it over to yourself in terms of the goal itself, because as Caris alluded to, Jay just coming talking about set pieces, because they were dangerous all night, really, particularly from Celine's delivery. And obviously, as we've said before, we've never seen anyone other than Katie Zellum really on set pieces in the last few years, because she used to take all the set pieces there. So it's nice to see, I think, that we haven't seen a big drop-off in those. I think that was a big area of concern, that, who is going to be the set piece taker now? Is it going to be the same level? I would argue yesterday, some of those corners were right on the money, just obviously couldn't convert them the same way there.
Yeah, no, there's definitely some good set pieces. Can't disagree with that at all. It's always going to be important that you have those opportunities. I think that, it's an interesting one. Katie Zellum was just very, very good at delivery. You hit a point where people still existed who were able to put good balls in. The difference was that because Katie Zellum was always on the pitch, she was always available to take them. The thing that we've got now is that different people can be on the pitch at different times. So therefore, as a result, it looks like you've got more options. The options are always there. It was just you didn't necessarily need to have them. So I think it was good, absolutely. I don't think it's a massive talking point in terms of having more than. I think that the key point that you mentioned is that the quality hasn't gone down. And I think that's the most important part of that particular statement. With regards to the goal, a bit rubbish, really. And I say that with love, because I watched it and my initial thought was, how on earth has that gone in? Like, what's happened here? And I had to watch it about 4 times before I really saw what had happened. So I think, like Caris says, it was rubbish defence. It really was. They didn't clear it, didn't clear their lines in the manner they should, just didn't do the right things defensively. That's good. It's nice to see the opposition doing that sort of thing. From Mallard's point of view, it's one of those where you just have a swing effectively and see where it goes. She got the power behind it. And, the goalie was unsighted, really, because there was just too much going on. So definitely took advantage of the drama, I suppose, that was happening in the penalty area. But yeah, for me personally, I cheered. I was going, suitably over the top in the old living room. But it was, again, with a sort of looking over my shoulder, a bit like the forwards do when they score and they wonder if they might be offside. I was a little bit like that. I'm cheering, but I'm like, how did it go in? Because I really wanted to see it again. So, it's hard to make out that it was a good goal, because it was I think somebody put up here, it's a poacher's goal, and that's exactly what it was. Right place, right time, and again, really good. But I think the goal really just capped off, and I know you're probably going to go into it now, but it really did just cap off what was overall a superb performance from Melvine, who I am sure that has basically laid down the gauntlet for Mr. Skinner to be considering her on a more permanent basis in that position.
No, exactly. Considering you said that, I'm literally going to throw it back to you. I'm going to do this throughout the show. I'm going to flip the order throughout the questions. So, Barry, I'll come back to you on Melvine's performance overall, because you kind of referenced to that. I thought she was unbelievable on that left hand. So obviously, someone's already referenced her injury and things like that. It's obviously not public knowledge of what has happened to her or anything else. So I guess we'll wait and see what happens there. I think just looking at it and everything else, I would expect she misses a few games anyway. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens there, especially now she's just put in that performance. But Baron, what do you make of her overall? Because it's the first time this season we've seen an actual left winger. Obviously, Alatoon's been playing in that kind of left, or that wide left role. That's what she's been put anyway. But for me, it was so nice seeing a winger hold that, stay so wide. She was almost on the sidelines a lot, and then driving at defenders and everything else. For me, she was just unbelievable on that left hand side.
I mean, like I say, there was a couple of things there that kind of confused me. I can't remember if I said this on here now, if I said it backstage, but it doesn't matter, it still stands. The thing that I found hard was, I did say it here, it was having Gabby George play at left back when actually, she's been sort of a substitute for the last couple of games. So if she was able to be there, you then argue, why could Leah Galton not have been up in the position she would usually be in the left midfield, which then leaves you to the question of why is it that we're forcing Ella to now onto the left-hand side when actually we know she's going to be better and more effective centrally. And that question, I think, has been discussed. But equally, the argument can be whether it's Leah Galton, whether it's Ella Toon. Melvine Malard has shown time and time again that she has the ability to do well in that position. And I just find it very difficult to work out quite what's happening. Like I said earlier, I like it. I like that Skinner's thinking outside the box and doing some different things. But, I was working very much on the idea that Gabby George wasn't playing because of the fact that she's been injured. But the amount of time that she played in this game would say to me that actually she is now capable of playing 90 minutes. So if I'm honest, what I'm expecting now is to see Gabby George go back to left back. And I would expect to see the Leah Galton or Melvine Malard playing in that position, because there's no doubt for me Melvine does better in that position. So I think that's what she showed. She was busy. She was up and about, doing everything she needed to down that left wing. She was winning the ball. She was getting crosses in. She was getting the end of crosses. She was just a nuisance. And that's what you want your wingers to be. You want the defenders to be coming off going, bloody hell, what an evening that's been. You don't want them coming off going, well, she's a good player, but it was just a case of guessing which way she was going. You don't want that. You want them to come off, run ragged and going, I didn't enjoy that. Don't want to do that again. And that's what Melvine did. I think the most disappointing part about her performance was when she was going for that little run. We saw her reach the back of her hamstring, and the hope is, that it's going to be more preventative and that she's okay. That's what it certainly seemed to be post-match. But there's just no doubt in her quality. We knew that. We've seen it many, many times. So actually, I wasn't shocked by it. I was just pleased by it.
No, absolutely. I was so worried when she went down, because I kind of said to the people next to me, she kind of went down, lay on her front and started smacking the ground. I thought, oh no, I've seen this before. Because obviously we were at the other end of the ground. We had no idea what she was doing. Then waiting for text to come through. People that watched on TV, what's she done? What's she holding? What are they looking at? So thankfully it's not I guess a long term one, which would be good. To have her back in ASAP. Caris, what do you make of her overall? As I said, because there was more balance on that left hand side having her there, because she kept the width on the left hand side, and then you had Gabby George as a left. You're not relying on your fullback to be the width. You've got that there anyway, so Gabby can kind of go up and down when she wants to. Yeah, what do you make of Melvine overall in kind of, I don't know how much she played in the end. Was it 30 minutes, 38 minutes or something?
I don't know, because I had to watch the game back on YouTube today, and there was very helpfully not a clock in the corner. So when I'm trying to make a note to myself of where things were in the game, I'm like a little bit after half time, and so on. So whenever it was, but yeah, I thought she was excellent. I think definitely just having that sort of more, as Barry said, we like to think outside the box, but sometimes having just, it can be very refreshing to see a very powerful, explosive, good dribbling left winger on the left wing taking on defenders on the touchline. And I really loved seeing that from her. I think she's just going from strength to strength, really. Like I said at the end of last season, that she was a player that I really hoped we'd sign permanently, because I felt that we were yet to see the best of her. I think we are starting to see that now, which is so exciting. I think I noticed as well, like, it's not that it's something she's been bad at, but her ball control in like taking the long balls out of the air, because Maya's been putting through quite a few of those. She's done really well with her first touch, taking those out of the air and taking them on straight away. I thought in her individual battles, she was great. Her physicality was great. And she's kind of proven like her versatility to be able to play in that wide role rather than just like an out and out number 9 role. Because obviously there was with Turlin coming in, how will all that competition work? I think we've actually found the position that I would say has been best for her in this team so far. So it'll be really interesting to see how Mark Skinner decides to move forward with it now, because he's clearly really enjoying having Leah Galton playing this sort of like hybrid role all up and down the left-hand side, with Ella Toon also up there on the left. So is whether he sticks with that and continues to use Melvine as sort of an impact sub, or whether he thinks that she's merited herself a start now.
No, absolutely. I agree with everything both of you have just said there. And I think there's no update, JJ, in terms of what her injury is. As I said, I think she'll be out for a couple of games, but we'll see if that information is probably, obviously because there's no games, we're not going to be able to ask Mark in the press conference on her this weekend, because there isn't one. So I think the earliest that we might find out is next week before the Spurs game. On that one, Truce asking about Sandberg. I wouldn't get your hopes up on seeing her anytime soon. I think that could be a while, if I'm being totally honest. But yeah, we'll see on that one. But yes, no, I agree on both of you. And I do think it's going to be interesting that when Melvine is obviously fully fit for games and everything else, obviously with Miyazawa, who we'll come on to a little bit later on. And I'm going to shamelessly plug it, because why not? If you go and look at the article I wrote earlier on, and I explain the reasons why I prefer Melvine off the left, is because then, as I said earlier, you're not relying on your fullback to be the width. You've already got the width with Bizet and Malard in this case, that kept the width. Then you've got your 2 inside midfielders, so it was Miyazawa and Awujo in this case. And it's just, for me, it's more balanced having an actual winger out there. And I hope if Gabby is now ready to play full 90s, that Gabby goes to the left. And if Galton goes on the left, I'm turns to left wing, I'm more than happy with that as well. I just want to see an actual winger out there rather than Ella Toon. So I just don't think she can play that role. And that's not just this season. I saw people replying to me earlier saying that I'm just digging her out for this season. I'm not. This is not the first time Mark's played her out wide. We've seen this over a couple of seasons, and it's never worked for me. So touchline wingers, chalk on the boots, as Stu would say on the men's channel. Chalk on the boots wingers. Which obviously, if you don't get the reference, obviously you're on the touchline, you get chalk on your boots there. You couldn't work that one out. I thought I'd explain it for the people, because I've had a few people today misquoting what I've said, so I thought I've really got to explain things now. There we go.
I'm not sure what else anybody possibly could have thought that meant.
Honestly, I've no idea these days.
Like, as if there's some sort of preschool children that just, can't write on the walls.
Yeah, I've never thought what else it could be, to be fair. On that, well, not on that, but on Melvine Malard, the player of the match poll is in the chat. We're getting some landslides in terms of our voting percentages on these things. Clinton's obviously won the first 2 by a pretty comfortable margin. So you can vote between Miyazawa, Malard, Awujo, and Bizet on this one. Although Miyazawa's on about 80%. I think we've got a clear winner on this one. We're going to come back to Miyazawa in a second, though, because I want to come to the second goal first. Mads, Watson will be out for a couple of weeks, I'd have thought. Mark spoke about it before the game. It's not a long-term one or anything else. So hopefully see her maybe in the next Conti game. Who knows? Anyway, Barry, the second goal, Rachel Williams obviously gets it, but this really comes from Miyazawa's press, doesn't it? Winning the ball ridiculously higher up and just lays. Williams has got so much time in the middle to just take her time and slot it in the corner. But that's another forward of ours off the mark now.
I mean, there's no really about it. It's just the high press, the way in which we are winning the ball so high up the pitch. I mean, it's always been reasonable, but it's markedly noticeable in this system that's being played. And I'm telling you now, it's bringing me so much joy, because if you can win the ball higher up the pitch, number one, you're causing them to have problems. So they start thinking about what they're going to do. If you can win the ball up high, first thing they think about, well, we're just going to launch the ball. And when you do that, you're more likely to win the ball as well. So it just gives us the chance to win that possession. And it's then what you do with that possession. And I think as a club, we've generally been quite good at getting possession, but then haven't necessarily done as much with it as we possibly can. And I think what we're finding in all of these games at the moment, all three of them, and I do include the Everton one in this, is that we're a bit more clinical. We are taking advantage of some of those opportunities. And I mean, to be fair, the Everton one, in some respects, we were a bit lucky. That could have been not as clinical. Had it not been for the early goal, we very well could have been looking at another 0-0. But I was thinking about that again, even after the show. Actually, as much as we've had really good results against Everton, we have also regularly had some shocking draws against Everton. So, it does have the ability to catch us out. I mean, you've only got to remember the marvellous moment, I'll never forget it, between Mary Earps and Maria Thoris-Dottir, as she effectively put the ball through her legs. So, it's happened many times before. I think this game was just really, really good for doing that. And like you say, winning the ball up high worked incredibly well. We get the ball. Miyazawa was just insane with how good she was up front there. And what it is for me there, it's not just that she did it, it's the anticipation that it was going to happen. And to go from that anticipation to actually getting there, because there's a part of you that wants to look at the goalkeeper there and go, what are you doing? Like, you can see she's a bit like a lion. Maybe it's that Panda Boy just wandering forward. And I know that's a tiger, Caris. I know it was a tiger, but that's what it's a bit like. Not exactly. Come on, behave yourself. It's just the potatoes. But genuinely, I think there's a point where the goalkeeper's looking at that and going, why have I passed that? Because you can see she's coming, like crouching tiger, hidden Miyazawa. And there she is. Boom, done. And gets the ball. And then she's not selfish. Puts the ball across. In comes mighty Rachel Williams out of that tank. Rolls forward. Boom. There's the goal. And I've killed Connor. That's great news. Well done. Wonder if I can get rid of Caris as well. That'd be interesting. I've never had that.
Connor's gone, so I'll just come in. I thought,
because I genuinely loved it. I thought it was superb. But give me a serious answer on it, because I was delighted.
I think Miyazawa, the thing that was very impressive about her for me, and always is just her reading of the game. Like, the goal was a very sort of like lower class example, because it was a poor pass. But if you watch it back, at first glance, it doesn't look that impressive that she's intercepted it. But when you watch it back, she's moving to where that ball's going, seconds before it's played. She's been watching. She knows where it's going. She reads the game really, really well. There was a couple of other moments in the game like that where she just had that kind of awareness of what they were going to do, and it helps her positioning so much. I thought her passing was good. Again, I think her kind of awareness on the pitch is what kind of sets her apart from, not that any of our other midfielders have bad awareness on the pitch, but I think that's the trait for me that really stands out when I watch her play. So I think her and Malard, for me, are the two that really made a case on Wednesday night for more starts and more minutes in the WSL. So I was laughing at Michael's comment.
It's because you exasperated about. There were 3 cracking gags in there, only 2 of which I'd expect all of you to get, and one of them that was specifically for her.
But did you say potatoes during all that? That's what made me laugh, because I was like, "What? I don't know what the relevance was." So I couldn't stop laughing, because I thought that's what I heard.
You have to wait till afterwards, because I'm not going to throw that one out here on live TV, I'm afraid. But Caris knows very well what the potatoes reference is all about, and that's all that matters.
We'll move on. I don't know. But in regards to Miyazawa, yes, I agree with both of you. I think someone put it in the chat, I think Highland said it's very similar to the Clinton goal against Everton in terms of that winning the ball in that left channel high up the pitch. And clearly that's obviously an instruction to press from the front. I've said that since pre-season. That was going to be us this season. And like I said, we're going to have to accept we're going to give up chances because we're pressing really high. As I've said before, it's a 4-2-4 when we're pressing because you've got 4 forwards with Miyazawa joining Malard Williams and Bizet in this case. So yeah, I was. Did you cover Miyazawa's before? As soon as you laughed, I couldn't understand what you were saying. But yeah, for me, she was outstanding. Miyazawa. I think someone said it earlier on her football intelligence. I say this a lot. It's kind of a buzzword that gets thrown about, and it has done the last few years. And it's football intelligence. I think she just has it in abundance, as Caris has said. Her kind of awareness on the pitch of what's going on around her. So many times she'd pick up space, which I've not seen other players do before in a United team. So yeah, massively impressed with her. And lots asked the questions. I'm going to bring it up. Do we think Grace and Hinnie can play together? Because Hinnie was kind of playing in Grace's role on Wednesday. Now, this is obviously a big question because for me, you've got 3 players that are probably playing in the same kind of position in Tooney, Grace, and Hinnie now. Tooney and Grace have obviously played together. So in my opinion, the answer is yes to this. And you have Grace as the right-sided 10 and Hinnie as the left. But that would mean dropping out of 2. You definitely can't play all 3. Unless you put Hinnie on the left wing, which James just said, then maybe. But I kind of like Hinnie as that left inside number 10, having your 2 10s, Hinnie and Grace, or Hinnie and Tooney, before Tooney's fans come at me.
Did you say left inside number 10?
Yes.
Oh, she can't do that. That's Keir Starmer's role. Honestly, that is a good one. Like, if you just think that one through, that is too good for this show. Genuinely. You'd get that on, I don't know, if I got news for you or something like that.
Caris is looking at me now going, why did you have to message me to come on here tonight?
Why always me?
I was meant to be going to the pub tonight, Connor. I was like, no, I'll come and do this instead. And now I have to listen to Barry make Keir Starmer jokes.
It's a good one, though. I mean, that wasn't even a dad joke. That was well thought through. But on to serious parts of it. I think what we were just talking about there with the players, we spoke about how the lineup was one of those that gave these players the opportunity to have. The players coming on is really giving that opportunity to fight for the positions, and that was what was so big. You know, we spoke about does Lisa Olsen play, but Hayley Ladd came on and I thought did okay. Sime Wo, somebody that we haven't necessarily spoken about much as yet, showed that she can come in and play that position as well. We've seen that Hinata's coming in can do it. We've seen that Melvine's coming in can do it. Rachel Williams has come on and scored as she just does. She just does what she always does. Even Muzzy Bizet has managed to come on and do the right thing. And all of those players, I mean, I would argue in the nicest possible way, the only player we're looking at there and not saying this person could and perhaps even should be starting was Aoife Mannion. Every other player there has laid down a marker and said, "Oh, tight, I probably should be really in contention." So we're talking about, do we drop a player, do we not? I think actually, if we flip that on its head, what we're actually talking about here is that we've got players that are hungry. This is one of the things they were talking about, the profile of people they wanted, hungry, young and talented. Well, they're all, apart from Aoife Mannion, they're all young, they're hungry and talented, and they've absolutely done that. So, you know, we give Mark Skinner a lot of stick for things that he says out loud on press conferences. It gave us a lot of material last year to be discussing. But I think on this one, he's been bang on. You know, he spoke about winning the ball higher up the pitch. We have. And he spoke about, I've been poked. And he spoke as well about the young, hungry, talented. I just think that's been proven. So absolutely superb.
Yeah, I will just shout because she's probably going to leave the chat any second. I will publicly just say I feel so sorry for you, Rosa, right now. Yourself and Jess. For those, shall I say it or not? Obviously, if people follow Rosa on Twitter, you'll see. Obviously, they're in Paris right now, expecting to see a certain Mary Earps for PSG. She's not even in the matchday squad, which I really feel for you. I can't lie. When I saw that come through, I was like, "You're the first I thought of." No, you're out there for that, so hence things are hard. But yes, it was a great game Wednesday. It was good. So I hope you have a good time in Paris anyway while you're out there. I don't know how long you're out there for, but I hope you have a good weekend or a good few days there, regardless of what you might see tonight. Puzzling times to there about when we mentioned it. She's played everywhere for Japan. She's played in the middle. She was played at right wing back for some games for Japan over the Olympics as well. So she's a very versatile player, and as I said, very intelligent enough to play those number of positions. So again, it's another option. Oh dear. Have a good night, Rosa. Anyway, I'll speak to you afterwards. I can't remember where we are. Appreciate that. Yes, make sure you are hitting the like button and subscribe if you're new around here. I'm sure there's some new people watching this for the first time as well. Caris, on that point there, in terms of, I can't remember, what did I ask? What was the original question? Was it about Miyazawa and was that one? Hinny and Grace, whether they can play together, and what you would be doing now with that? You know, now that Hinny's kind of put the marker down, Melvine as well to a certain extent. You know, in terms of that left side of attack now.
This is where you do have to say, like, as much as we all criticize managers sometimes, this is where you do have to hold your hands up and be like, fair play, this is a tough one, because what we've got is three, in my opinion, world-class players in Grace, Tooney and Hinny, and if you could start all of them, you would. I personally don't think there's the option to start Hinny on the left. I personally just don't think she can influence the game as much from there. I don't think her sort of, like, to use Connor's phrase, like football intelligence and stuff, she just doesn't have as much opportunity to what she was doing on Wednesday, moving around in the middle of the park, pulling players out of position, finding those little like pockets. I think she's almost easier for a defender to deal with when she's out on the wing for me. So I don't think there is, for me, a situation where you're playing all three of them, which is really tough. So you're then looking at which two are you using in that sort of double 10, double like behind the striker, I think is the best place for, unfortunately, all three of those players. So then it's a question of, do we have a situation where it's, say, Tooney and Gracie starting every game and Hinny comes on at 70 minutes in every game for one of them? Is that what we want, or do we want to be a bit more unpredictable and a bit more rotating than that? And we actually mix things up and we make sure all three of them are getting consistent minutes so that none of the three of them are knackered. All of them have the match minutes to be called on whenever they're needed, and all of them are up to standard. I think that's the sort of thing that when we're talking about these sort of squad selection debates, no player likes to be seen as, okay, we've got three players for two positions, you're all going to rotate. Every player wants to start. But I think in this situation, it is one where that sort of accepting like natural rotation could actually be really beneficial for us. And also, like, based on, Truth's just said, based on opponent as well. There are certain attributes that some opponents will have, some opposition defenders will have, that will mean that Grace will be a complete nightmare for them, or Hinny will, or Tooney will. It's about adapting between games, which I think and I hope is something that we are seeing a bit more of this season. So I'm hopeful that that's the approach that we take with it.
Yeah, no, I think it will be. And I think, as you said, obviously it depends on the game. I think I know what you're saying, Puddington, in terms of, you know, Golden Boot, but I think Japan just play a different system than we do, and I think it works having her there in that system anyway. Whereas I think in ours, I thought she's just so suited to that. For me, I might be wrong, as I'm not claiming to be right, but I just think she suits that role down to the ground, just off the winger, kind of in that little space. You know, similar to what Tooney and Grace does. Grace has done it brilliantly off the right-hand side with Jason over there, so it can work. And I think if you have a Malard or a Galton, whoever, or even Bizet was out on the left at times yesterday, on Wednesday as well. I think it can work. Yeah, we'll come back to player of the match towards the end, but I think just chat's pretty. To be fair though, it's coming down. The gap's getting closer. So yeah, we'll interested to see how that ends up when we come back around to that one. Someone else, Barry, you mentioned who I wanted to talk about was Sime Wo actually. because she got her first start. She has played in the previous two, but this one again was a bit more of an advanced role. We kind of thought she would come in and be that kind of holding midfielder, but on Wednesday night again, it was Ladd that was kind of the holding midfielder, and Awujo was basically in that Clinton position, pushing right up there. She had a couple of shots as well from memory, but I just thought she was excellent. Threw a nutmeg in there. She was. Do you know what it was for me? I was so glad to actually see a midfielder of ours be really physical in the middle. I think it's something we'd like. And Mark Skinner actually spoke about this I can't remember if it was the pre-match or the post-match when he spoke about Awujo, adding that physicality in the middle, being able to run. What did you make of her performance over? Because again, I think this is another player that's thrown a bit of a gauntlet down to the other midfielder, saying if you're not performing, I'm right on your heels, ready to start games as well.
No, absolutely. I think that. I mean, it's an interesting one. I think that I don't think that Liverpool offered as much as I thought they would. I think for a side that pushed us to and then pipped us to fourth last season, I don't think I saw that Liverpool in that game. Now, I don't watch or care enough about Liverpool to know if that is a weekly thing, but I think it's very important that we just take a moment to recognise that they weren't as good as we have seen them. As a result, we could probably afford to put Simi that little bit higher up because we had more of the possession and we had more of the game. Liverpool just weren't attacking to the level that we would expect, and we didn't get a shot on target all game. So that kind of gives you an idea as to whereabouts we are. So, listen, this isn't meant to denigrate Simi at all, because I'm just saying you could afford to put her higher up the pitch because of the fact that Liverpool were not pushing forward as much. I think had they been pushing forward, she probably would have had to drop back a bit more. And I think it was just more of a reaction to how Liverpool were playing, rather than necessarily or even just a guess as to how Liverpool were going to play. And that's why they chose to do that. But it's that beauty of the fact that we've got a player there who can go forward, but equally would be just as comfortable sitting back. Some might argue Katie Zellum was able to do that. A lot wouldn't, but I would. So am I saying she's like Katie Zellum? No, I'm not. What I'm saying is comfortable, whether it be forward or backward.
No, I tend to agree, and I think, Caris, I'll throw this over to you with this comment as well, because it's something I can't remember whether I said it on Monday's show after Everton, but obviously a lot of Fallon's kicks kind of end up in that midfield area, and because of Simi's height and her presence in the middle, she's winning a lot. And not just the first ball, she's winning the second ball as well, which I think is something we've not really had. As I said, we've not really had I guess you could say Hayley Ladd is that, but I don't think Nelson's incredibly kind of physical. Zellum, obviously, I don't think is either. I don't think Tooney is really that necessarily that physical type either. So this is kind of the first for a while that we've seen, kind of a big kind of physical midfielder in there. What did you make of her kind of overall and everything else in terms of her overall performance, but also on this comment as well, the fact that we're able to win more balls in the air from a midfield point of view as well?
Yeah, I think I was really, really impressed with her, especially considering I looked up her name to double check I was pronouncing it right and discovered she would be in my year at school. So that's always something that's depressing for me. But I thought she was excellent. I thought her we've mentioned aerial presence. I do think that's something that, especially when we've had like issues from goal kicks, I think dominating the ball in the centre of the park, we had, we all love Katie Zellum, but towards the end of last season, we had a couple of times we were saying, how's she been pushed off that ball, that sort of thing. It's really good to see that sort of battling midfield presence who will fight for the first and the second ball. I also thought she was very composed, particularly considering it's probably the most attacking we've seen her play. I think we haven't seen her play many minutes, and when we have, I think they've been less far up the pitch than she was. So it was nice to get to see her sort of exploiting some of the spaces between Liverpool's lines, playing with a bit more creativity, a bit more confidence, because we had eventually that 2-goal cushion. But even before we had that, I was just really impressed with her confidence and her composure in that role. I thought was really, really promising. She was, sort of in a similar-ish way to Hinny, like making those runs in the middle of the park to pull players out of position. I thought she stood up really well in challenges, even when she was under pressure, like from someone on her shoulder who she hadn't even seen coming. She stood up really well under that. So to just have that sort of presence in the squad who can fill that sort of holding role in midfield, but also go forward, is something that is just so promising in terms of, like Mark Skinner's talked about wanting to control transitions better. I think she could be really helpful for that. So yeah, very, very excited to see that performance from her. I think she's so young as well. She's only going to get better.
Yeah, exactly. Against a physical Liverpool team as well. People forget these up. Although Liverpool were heavily rotated as well. Still a very physical side there. There's a lot of comments talking about her height now as well. And I will just say, Georgia, I think she probably looks taller to you because you are quite small yourself. So, 5'8" is probably about right.
Yeah, people see me out and they think I'm 5'7", but I'm definitely only just over 5 foot. So something about real life, the camera takes off, about 70.
I do apologise for that, Jordan. I just sly little dig out there, but I'm in one of those moods tonight now. So I'm going with it. But no, she does look taller than 5'8". I mean, I haven't seen her. Obviously, Old Trafford's a bit different because we're so kind of like higher up. But LSV, she definitely looked. LSV, she definitely looked taller than that. I mean, I'm 5'9", 5'10", so maybe I don't. I'm getting told off now. Oh, I don't know. Oh, like Barry said on Monday or whatever it was. What's life without a bit of laughter? Eh? You got to throw it in there into the shows. We navigate our way through it. Lots saying there about Simi as the 6. I mean, we bought her for that essentially, to play in that kind of deeper role anyway. So I'm not against that. Certainly, I think we will see that at some point. I don't know when, but I think we will see something like that in terms of Simi there and Grace / Hinny or Tooney in front of them. So again, it's options. That's what I've liked from this game. It's given us options and more players to talk about when we move forward into Spurs in the future. I'm glad Georgia saw the funny side, by the way. I was a bit worried then that you weren't going to say anything. just that's it. Block A for you, and that's the end of that. The last player I want to talk about, because she's on the player of the match poll, and then we'll round this show off. Because we are back again on Monday, believe it or not. I know 3 shows in 7 days, mad for us, isn't it, at the minute? But Celine Bizet got her first start, and now if anyone saw the nutmeg she did as well, obviously that was pretty cheeky down the right hand side. But I just thought, again, maybe unlucky she didn't get a goal from the kind of cut inside that she did. So, Caris, I'll start with you on this one, because you're when we were chatting backstage about player of the match, you kind of put her name into the conversation. So, what did you make of her kind of overall game? And again, it's another option off the right-hand side now.
I thought what she kind of demonstrated that maybe has been a criticism that some of us have had of Jace in the past was like the sort of the physical battling and the tracking back into the midfield as well, was something that I thought she did well. But her hold-up play, her sort of physicality to be able to just stand on the ball, hold the opposition players off it, wait for the pass, is something that I think is really valuable in, again, helping us in transitions, making our attacks feel less rushed. I think the thing that's just struck me about a lot of our kind of new signings or the players who were rotated in that haven't played much so far was composure on the ball. I think that was the massive thing that stood out to me, was that none of them looked rusty or looked like they didn't know where they were going, what they were doing. And I thought Bizet really stuck out for that reason. She had, I think, her set piece deliveries, the ones that she took, were really good as well. Someone saying she's reminiscent of Garcia. Don't make me talk about Garcia or I'll start crying. But she's been. I was really happy with what we saw from her on Wednesday. I think she brings that element of sort of tenacity in going back, but also in going forward, in picking out passes. I think she just gives, as she's a big physical presence as well, gives defenders that extra little something to worry about. A little bit like Malard in a lot of ways. I think a lot of their attributes that I enjoy seeing in a winger are quite similar. And she's so technically gifted that, I really hope that she's just another one of those players who can start challenging for this starting spot. I think between her and Jace, they bring slightly different things. And I think both, I'd be happy seeing either of them starting, which is just such a nice position for us to be in. So, yeah, really, really happy with how she played.
No, absolutely. And Barry, I'll throw the same question to yourself. But as has been mentioned in the chat quite a few times, I think Locke put it first, she was doing her work defensively as well, tracking. And this is something that when me and Jamie did the player profile on her when we signed her, this is something that Jamie really highlighted, that her defensive work is as good as her attacking in that sense. I think although Liverpool didn't have a whole host of chances, she was the one getting back on that right-hand side and won a lot of possession back for us with her kind of defensive work or interceptions and things like that.
Yeah, look, as I said already, all of the players that came in that were not starters in the previous 2 games, the rotated players, all came on and did brilliantly. I've got literally no bad words to say about any of them. And as I said, each of them has marked their card for being players that are thought of as potential starters, for sure. They've changed the word substitute now. They keep calling them game changers, and I think that's kind of where we are now. Whenever somebody gets dropped down to the bench, we do seem to have players who, if you were bringing them on, you would feel quite confident, have the ability to change a game or the ability to help us do things that we're maybe not already doing whilst we're on the pitch. So I think from Celine's point of view, I thought she was very good. Very, very good. We said there was winning the ball back. There was just like 101 things really that was going on that I thought was really very good from Celine. So yeah, there's a lot of love for her in the chat, which I think is great. Personally, I'd still sit Jays, I think, but as much as I would still pick Jays at the moment, yes, I think I would. I think I would just stick with Jays at the minute. It's one good performance against a dodgy Liverpool, but I would like to see her playing a bit more.
Right, okay. Sorry. I'm massively distracted then because it came off my screen, which I've never seen before. Host had muted your mic, and I apologise. You could probably hear me typing away there. And I've never seen that before. I was looking at it.
So I was like, that's why I said yes. I said it.
It's good. I was trying to get the YouTube thing open so I could see the percentages when I end the poll in a minute. But it came, host. I'm like, I am the host here, unless I've been relieved of my duties mid-show.
What StreamYard knows that you don't, I can't possibly tell you.
I thought that was shocking, that. But yes, I agree. I think we will see Jay still out on the right-hand side. But again, I think when we come to play Arsenal, I think it'll be interesting. Whether it's Celine or whether it's Jace on that right-hand side. Because
sorry, I did get a bit taken away by your muting thing, but this thing about Villeman, absolutely. I think if there was ever an argument for her starting a game, this one could be it, because people love scoring against their old side. So I think there would be a real option to have Bizet start against Spurs.
No, absolutely. As Villahan has come out and said recently that they've got the better deal with Rasso. So, they need to stop asking about Salim really to him in press conferences, to be honest, because, but it was Barry Ellen. It definitely wasn't curious.
I'm not allowed. I don't have any of the buttons that let me do that, so I can't commit any mutinies.
It was me, absolutely, and I'm not even sorry.
To be fair, if someone else was typing away, I'd be muting them. So fair. I just thought I was muted. Little did I know. Anyway, right, let's come to player of the match. Then, I mean, there's a clear winner in the chat. I'm going to leave the poll running. I'm just going to come to you two first before I come back to the one in the chat. Caris, who would you have gone for and why?
I would have gone for Miyazawa just because everything that we've said in this show, her awareness, her reading of the game, her contribution to the attack, I think she is probably the person that's made the strongest case for a place in the starting lineup. It's just unfortunate for her that the people she's making a case against happen to be one of the most sort of never dropped players in the team in Ella Toon, and one of the other players who is in exceptional form, which is Grace Clinton. So yeah, Miyazawa for me.
Barry, would you agree with that one? Or would you have gone for somebody different?
I mean, had she not gone off just before half time, I think Malard was well on the way to potentially getting that as well. But I don't think. I think it's a landslide one for me. It has to be Miyazawa.
Yeah, no, and I agree as well. And so does everyone in the chat. About 70%, I think it is, when I ended that one. So comfortably Bizet second, the Wujo, and then Melvine Malard at the bottom. I do agree. I think if Melvine had played longer, I think she probably gets it because she may have got another goal or whatever else because she was so involved in the game. I think she would have been higher up on that list. But Tita's taking the words right out of my mouth. Second half, I thought she was excellent as well. So, yeah, 100% deserved. Hinny on that one. That's her first one, I believe. I don't think she's ever had a player of them. Obviously, last season when she did play, I don't think she ever had a player of the match with us. So, here we go. It's the first for all of them on that one. Yeah, it's certainly going to be a minute. But everyone's agreeing in the chat. There's a lot of love for Hinny, as we kind of expected as well. And it's also worth noting, we didn't even mention it when we were talking about Miyazawa. She did it at the post as well in the second half, which, inches. I really thought that was going to just nestle into that bottom corner, but wasn't quite to be on that occasion. Right, well, let's wrap it up there. Caris, before we let you go and everything else, is there anything you want to shout out while you're here? It's been a while since I've asked if there's anything that you're up to these days that you want to shout out.
I'm up to all sorts, but I've got this weekend over on fromthespot.co.uk where I'm women's football editor now. I've 3 match reports this weekend. So all my work will be going on there. That's my weekend plans as we're not playing, so I've got nowhere to travel to. So yeah, you can see some of my writing on there.
No, absolutely. That's what I wanted to say. Make sure you go and check that out for all things over there as well. Obviously, if you're just joining the show, there's been a lot of comments that have kind of been asking us to talk about certain things we did cover earlier on in the show as well. So if you want to hear us talk about Newell or the left-hand side or Malard, all that kind of thing, we covered that at the start of the show as well. We'll be back on Monday where we're finally doing our draft show. So something to look forward to. Something a bit different because we're not obviously playing over the weekend. So something to look forward to then. So that'll be good to keep an eye on. Then obviously we're into match week anyway with Spurs following that. Make sure you're following all of our socials at allforunitedwfc. Easy to find. If you want to hear a debrief of the men's game, Barry is live in 24 minutes time on the men's channel. I was going to say, I can't imagine that's going to be as positive as this one. But you can check out all of that as well. Check out our pinned tweet as well. Go on.
You never asked me if I've got anything to shout out.
Do you want to shout something out, bro?
No. Just be nice to be out.
There we go. I really wish you had something to shout out then. But make sure. I want to make sure I ask next time. But anyway, make sure you check out our pin tweet as well because the Content Awards is fast approaching. So if you'd like to vote for us on that and enjoy what we're doing, whether that's on here, TikTok or Twitter or Instagram, all that kind of stuff, check out our pin tweet. There's 3 different ways to vote on that one. The voting close, I believe it's about it's less than 10 days now, I think. 9 days, 13th of October. So there's not too long to go on that one. Make sure you're liking this video and subscribing if you haven't already, if you're new around here. And yeah, have a good weekend all. No United women, but it's fine. We'll be back on Monday regardless. Have a good weekend. We'll see you then.